Hi class! So if you're in this video, that means you have already completed your biochemistry evaluation exam. So just a quick reminder, again, our EE is 80 items and of course, it's good for 120 minutes. So this is consistent with the time limit in our actual board exam. So in order to get a 70% rating, our passing score, of course, you need to have a minimum score of 56. So again, in this video, we will go through the answers and discuss the rationalization behind our evaluation exam items. So I hope that you are all ready. So prepare your highlighters, your booklets, your notebooks in order to take down notes. So class, let's get started with our first item. Alright, so class, for our first item, this is under your water properties, diba? So for item 1, which property of water explains why tall trees are able to absorb water from the ground through the roots, even if the direction is against the pull of gravity? Let's check the choices. For letter A, is it high boiling point? So class, I do hope that this is not your answer because again, your boiling point allows your water to be in the liquid state, okay? So letter B, sir, high polarity. Class, that's also an incorrect answer, okay? So A and B again, incorrect. For polarity, of course, it is used by water to dissolve your nutrients, alright? That's why we call it your universal solvent. Letter C, high heat of vaporization. Class, see, high heat of vaporization is not the answer, okay? So this is actually for your transpiration process naman ng ating plants. So obviously, our answer for number 1 is letter D, okay? So again, remember, I repeatedly emphasized this during our discussion, diba? For cohesion, of course, that's your surface tension. See, adhesion, that's for the capillary action, which is also important in transporting the nutrients that counteracts the pull of gravity. Diba? For cohesion, remember, that's the attraction between your water molecules. And for your adhesion, with your water and other polar or charged surfaces. Diba, class? Here is a specific transport mechanism that's happening inside our xylem. So si xylem, of course, deliver yan ng liquid nutrients. As you can see, for instance, water interacts with a polar surface that is your cell wall. Okay? So class, I hope that's clear again. Ayan, we have a summary. For cohesion and adhesion, that pulls your water upward in trees, or we call it your capillarity. For boiling point, ayan, it allows your water to remain in liquid state during the transport process. For polarity, ayan, again, to dissolve nutrients being the universal solvent. And lastly, your high heat of or vaporization is for transpiration. Class, clear ang explanation on number 1, ha? Again, letter D. Let's proceed with our next question. Class, still again, this is for your water. But again, this one is a trivia question. Palakas ng guardian angel here. Ayan, the total body water in various subjects is relatively constant when expressed as percentage of the lean body mass and is about blank. Let's check the choices. So class, if you are not really familiar with the answer, pwede kang mag-guess, okay? Wise guess dapat tayo. So si 90%, this is actually too high, okay? So again, too high ang 90% for our total body water percentage. O si letter B, sir, 40%, too low yan, no? Yes, class, that's good. Of course, this is too low. So now, it's between your 50% and your 70%. And I think I briefly discussed this, that our biological systems, particularly for humans, our body is composed of, class, our answer must be 70%. Again, it is constant for all organisms or across individuals. So again, your TBW or total body water is relatively constant across individuals when expressed as a percentage of lean body mass, and it's about 70%. Because you're strict yan na 70%, actually class, it's a range. Ayan, and although 60 to 70% siya, in our choices kasi wala namang 60%. But if ever that they also included your 60% in the choices, of course, pick the higher option. 70% class ang ating answer for number 2, and that's letter D, okay? So I hope that's clear. Ayan, let's proceed with our next item. Which of the following pairs of compounds can be used to prepare a buffer system? Class check, we have 4 sets of possible answers here. And here are the choices. Before we proceed, I hope that you will be careful in answering these types of questions. Sir, bakit po? Because again, we use here 2 different numbering type, Roman numeral and your alphabetical order. Class, ang tendency ng students is to directly answer this item via this Roman numeral. So for instance, number 4 ang correct answer, automatic i-answer nila letter D. But in our choices, of course, that's clearly incorrect. That's why dapat careful tayo in also answering our items. Going back, ayan, from your Anakin, I do hope meron kayong na-stock na knowledge. Again, for buffer system, it should consist a weak acid and its conjugate base, or a weak base and its conjugate acid. Diba? So dapat pair sila with its acid and conjugate base. And of course, emphasis on its weak acid or weak base. Let's check the options. Let's start with number 4. 4 is actually a formic acid and your water. Sir, I'm 100% sure weak acid is a formic acid. Yes, class, good job, that's correct. But it's water, it's conjugate base. Class, this is not its conjugate base. If I recall, your conjugate base is actually the formate ion. Okay, so number 4 is not our correct answer here. For number 3, this is your potassium dihydrogen phosphate and your potassium phosphate. Sir, I remember si phosphoric acid is actually a polyprotic acid. And diba yun yung source ng ating potassium dihydrogen phosphate. That's why here in our pair, this class, here in our pair, this compound, your potassium dihydrogen phosphate, acts as a weak acid. But is potassium phosphate really its conjugate base? Sir, no po. Dapat si K2HPO4, okay? So class, clearly number 3 is not also the correct answer. For number 2, class, very obvious, this is a strong acid. So automatic hindi po si number 2 ang correct answer. And clearly, number 1 is our correct answer. Si methyl ammonia, its conjugate acid is si methyl ammonium, diba? So ang difference lang nila, of course, is the protonation for your conjugate acid. So sir, ang answer here is letter B. Yes po. Careful lang again. Letter B ang answer for number 3. Okay, so class, clear with our third item. Alright, so let's proceed with our 4th question. So if sucrose and monosodium glutamate, or MSG as we call it, are added to a vinegar and oil salad dressing and we shake it, the mixture will eventually separate into 2 phases of different density and polarity. O sir, parang anachem yan. Yes, of course, that's your separation method. Where will most of the sucrose and the MSG be located following phase separation? Here are the choices. A, both will concentrate in the vinegar. B, both will concentrate sa oil naman daw. Or C, both will concentrate at the interface. Okay, so yung boundary ng vinegar oil, phases natin ang interface. And letter D, sucrose will concentrate in the oil and MSG will concentrate in the vinegar. So class, in this type of question, I think ang applicable here is your solubility property. Of course, we need to brush up your knowledge on your analytical chemistry. But here, very straightforward ang explanation. Di ba familiar with your like dissolves like na concept? So clearly class, si sucrose and MSG, they are actually polar molecule. For our two solvents, si vinegar and si oil, which is a polar compound. Sir, si vinegar, may acetic acid. Yes, that's correct. Di ba? For number 4, our answer is letter A. To fully explain the reason, again, let's check the structure of your solutes and our choice of solvents. So si sucrose class, because of its numerous hydroxyl groups, it is clearly a polar compound. Again, hindi siya bulky because it's only a disaccharide. And of course, from experience naman, natutunaw talaga ang ating sucrose sa polar solvent. On the other hand, si MSG, because of its ionic characteristic, ayan, this is actually a polar solute as well. So class, again, these are capable of hydrogen bonding. Alright, so for our choice of solvents, again, si vinegar, ang common component niya is your acetic acid. Si oil, of course, that's your fatty acids, diba? As we have discussed in your lipids discussion. So here, class, ang ating answer. Both sucrose and MSG will concentrate in the vinegar since they are water-soluble because of their structural characteristic. And vinegar as well is polar, or it can be dissolved in aqueous phase. So see, again, capable of bonding or with your IMFA with our solutes. That's why our answer again is letter A. Clear with number 4? Yes, sir. Perfect na po so far. Very good. So let's proceed with number 5. Sure, parang di natin yun na-discuss. So let's check class again. So we somehow indirectly discussed this in our discussion sa carbs metabolism, particularly in photosynthesis, okay? So most of the dry mass in the trunk of a tree was originally derived from blank. So let's check. Is it A, amino acids, B, glucose, C, soil, or D, carbon dioxide? O class, from our discussion sa photosynthesis, di ba recall, wala naman tayong input ng amino acids, di ba? So si soil din walang ganap yan. So it's either your glucose or carbon dioxide as participants, reactants, or either products of your photosynthetic pathway. And here class, very obvious. Si glucose kasi product yan for energy source ng ating plants. So sir, incorrect answer sa D? Yes po. Okay? So our answer here actually is carbon dioxide. Accumulation of your carbon dioxide as a reactant, of course, it gives your tree its dry mass. Let's check again. Answer for number 5 is letter D. Carbon dioxide fixed during photosynthesis in our Calvin cycle. Diba? Of course, this is our reactant. So some of your carbon dioxide will be used in your photosynthesis, of course, and others will be stored as carbon. Diba? So again, your photosynthetic pathway allows the absorption of your trees to absorb your carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and use sunlight to convert it into glucose. So of course, class, we use it to build structural components like cellulose. And remember, cellulose is like your glucose polysaccharide. Diba? So of course, here our answer again is letter D, carbon dioxide for our number 5 question. Clear again, your dry mass ng trees are mainly from your carbon dioxide. Number 6, which of the following monosaccharides are epimers? So here again, class, careful. Again, we have 4 different types of monosaccharides, and here are the choices. Let's check again when we say epimers, they only differ in one stereogenic center. Starting with letter A, 1 and 2 daw. So let's check kung ilang stereogenic center ang different sila. So first, as a C2, they are different. And then of course, sa C3 then they are different, diba? So obviously, this is not the correct answer. So letter A is not our correct answer. How about letter B? Let's check. 1 and 4. Class, for 1 and 4, again, sa C2, they are different. How about our C3? Again, different sila, class. And then, of course, your C4 is also different. So letter B also is not our correct answer. So letter C, 2 and 3, class, let's just remove our pen. 2 and 3, again, ayan, here is a point of difference. And this is also a point of difference. And clearly, they are not epimeric pairs. So number 4, 2 and 4 naman po, ayan, let's check. So class, here, clearly, they are only different. If you are going to analyze their structure, different lang po sila sa C4 position. So clearly, our answer here is letter D, okay? So for number 6, very obvious, sir. Letter D ang answer, 2 and 4, they are epimeric at the C4 position. Okay, again, for number 6, our answer is letter D. Diba remember, we have your 2 main epimeric pairs, particularly in your glucose or in your aldohexose monosaccharide. And remember the mnemonics, all altruists gladly make gum in gallon tanks. And here again, C2 position, epimeric si glucose and mannose. And then for our C4, ayan, class, we have your galactose, diba? So I hope that's clear. Again, that's it for our item number 6. Number 7, class. So this is still about your carbohydrates, particularly in our discussion sa polysaccharides. Amylose and amylopectin are the principal starch polysaccharides in class, diba? These are your starch components, the amylose and amylopectin. Or remember, here are the structures of your 2 polysaccharides. They are only different in the extent of their branching. So the amylopectin, extensively branched, it has an additional alpha-1,6 glycosidic bond. And class, remember, your starch are your energy storage for plant cells, diba? So amylose and amylopectin are plant starch components that store energy as long chains of glucose. All right, so class, for number 7, obvious answer is letter A. Again, that's right. So again, number 7 is letter A. Alright, so class, here is our next item. Which of the following is a disaccharide? So class, here are the choices. C, A, amylose, B, fucose, C, cellubiose, or D, mannose. Also, from our previous item, amylose is a polysaccharide. Yes, so this is not our answer, diba? And class, remember, in our discussion sa crash course, mannose is actually a aldohexose, diba? So they are epimeric pair, or your mannose sugar is epimeric with your glucose. Okay, so again, so D is actually a monosaccharide. Class, it's just between B and C. And if you remember, we discussed this briefly in our crash course. So answer for number 8 is actually cellubiose. So check nyo ang monosaccharide units, that's just 2 monomeric units of glucose. Also, si fucose, ano po siya? That's monosaccharide as well. So class, clearly, our answer here is letter C, cellubiose. O diba, very easy, basta alam mo ang nature or property and classification ng ating carbohydrates. Let's proceed with our 9th question. Which of the following is a storage polysaccharide? Class, here are our choices. From our discussion, we know si cellulose actually is a structural polysaccharide. Alright? Si chitin, sir, parang structural polysaccharide din yan. Yes, class. And they are commonly seen in your arthropods, sa mga hard shells ng ating arthropods. So clearly si C is also not the correct answer. Class, si hyaluronic acid, this is actually structural as well. So sa mga joints, they lubricate our joints in our body. So si letter D is also for structural role. And very obvious, class, again, si glycogen is our energy storage. Diba? So ang counterpart niya in your plants, so they are our starch. So here are our summary for this specific item. Again, sa cellulose sa plant cell walls, glycogen is in your energy reserve for animals, chitin, ayan, structural components of your fungi and arthropods, and hyaluronic acid for lubrication ng connective tissue. Okay, so I hope that's clear, class. Again, number 9 is letter B. Alright, number 10, ayan. All of the following are monoenoic acids or they have one double bond in their structure except blank. Class, I hope that you are familiar with our PUFAs. So clearly or simply PUFAs lang po ang tinatanong. So this unsaturated fatty acid is present in corn, peanut, cottonseed, soybean, and many plant oils. Let's check. Is it A, palmitoleic acid, B, oleic acid, C, elaidic acid, or D, linoleic acid? Okay, so class, again, here are the structure of our unsaturated fatty acid. O, diba, si palmitoleic acid, sir, one double bond lang yan. So, of course, this is not our correct answer. Again, we are searching for our polyunsaturated fatty acid. How about the oleic? Check. This is also monoenoic. So letter B is also not the correct answer. Sir, ano po yung elaidic acid? So class, actually, that's just also your oleic acid. But here, ang ating double bond is trans configuration instead of your cis configuration. Okay? So class, again, so letter C, monoenoic din siya. This is not our correct answer. And clearly, from the structure of your linoleic acid, ayan, it is a polyunsaturated fatty acid with 2 double bonds. So here, our answer is letter B. Okay? So class, I hope that's clear. For number 10, our answer is letter B. Alright, now let's proceed with our next question. Adrenocortical hormones and sex hormones are under which type of lipid? O, diba class, your hormones, ang common na precursor molecule nila are your, so I hope na remember nyo siya during your EE, that's actually your steroids. Okay? So again, class, here are the structures of our sex hormones. See, comparing it to your steroids, they are the precursor molecule for our sex hormones. Of course, they are derivatives. May mga functional groups na inattach for the function and your properties ng sex hormones. O, diba, very easy question, si number 11. Alright, so for number 12, again, as you can see, class, very trivia ang question in biochem. So it's a hit or miss. That's why we need to cover a lot of topics. Anyway, going back, fatty fish like salmon and albacore are known to be rich in ayan, A, omega-3, B, omega-6 fatty acids, C, saturated fatty acids, or D, polyunsaturated fatty acids. Class, a tip here, if you know that polyunsaturated fatty acids can be divided into 2, omega-3 and omega-6, you can already eliminate letter D. Okay? Because sir, anong reason? Vague siya, class. So you can pick omega-3 or omega-6. Also, sir, si letter C, hindi rin siya correct answer. Yes po. So later on, we will see that fatty fish is actually rich in your omega-3 fatty acids. Okay? Particularly your EPA and DHA. Ayan. So again, your fatty fish like salmon and albacore, very rich in omega-3, particularly si icosapentaenoic acid and your docosahexaenoic acid. Okay, so class, for number 12, our answer is letter A. Ayan. So very easy then if you know our sources ng fatty acids, particularly our PUFAs. Alright, number 13. Which of the following is less soluble in aqueous solution? Class, in aqueous solution, your molecule is water. So dapat polar or charged ang ating choices here. And of course, here are the choices. Ayan, sucrose, KCl, or your potassium chloride, ethanol, and palmitic acid. So all of them are soluble except one, diba? So remember, here are the substances. So sucrose, sir, yan ba ay soluble? Yes po. Again, because of its hydroxyl groups, so siya ay polar, disaccharide can be dissolved in aqueous solution. Sir, si KCl from inorg, that's ionic. So it can interact greatly with water. Yeah, so actually through dissociation, diba? Si ethanol naman, because of its hydroxyl group, ayan, very soluble because polar siya, and additionally, it's small in terms of its molecular weight. Sir, si letter D ang answer, no? Yes po, this is poorly soluble because of its hydrophobicity. Again, hydrophobic po ang palmitic acid. Okay, for number 13, our answer is letter B. Ayan, so class, I hope you got the correct answer. And so far, dapat kayo ay perfect pa rin, diba? So of course, here in your EE, you need to analyze your incorrect answers because again, that's your weakest points, class. I hope that's clear. Again, that's your weakest point. So dapat after your EE, you need to take a lot or exert an effort in order to understand those topics that you quite find difficult. Alright, so anyway class, going back, no, number 14 is an actual board exam question during our time. Lagyan mo ng asterisk, diba? So number 14, we discussed this in our crash course. Your NSAIDs or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs such as your aspirin and ibuprofen medication act by blocking production of, so diba that's your icosanoids in general, but here I am looking for a specific icosanoid. Ayan, so class, we have seen this already from our Did You Know segment. Our answer here is letter B, prostaglandins. Diba? So again, ang point or yung mechanism of your inhibition for NSAIDs is the cyclooxygenase enzymes, COX-1 and COX-2. That's why it inhibits the synthesis of your icosanoid prostaglandins. Okay, number 14 again, class, our answer is letter B. Ayan, so class, let's proceed with our next item. Which of the following is the major intermediate in the biosynthesis of cholesterol and is widely distributed in nature? It is found both in plants and animals. Class, I emphasize this twice. First one in our discussion in lipids, non-hydrolyzable lipids. And second one is during our lipid metabolism discussion. Diba? In cholesterol biosynthesis, we have two main intermediates. First one is mevalonate, and the second one is, class, please, I do hope you got the correct answer. That's your squalene. Okay, so again, squalene is a triterpene that serves as a major intermediate in the biosynthesis of cholesterol for your plants and animal cells. Diba? Class, we have a supplementary discussion pa nga for the specific reaction mechanism of your cholesterol biosynthesis coming from your squalene. Alright, so class, I hope that's clear. Our answer, for number 15 is letter A. Ayan, so let's proceed with number 16. Sir, parang di natin yan na-discuss during the crash course. Yes, class, but this is about your lipid assemblies actually. So class, at high concentration of soap in water, soap behaves as, so natatandaan ba ang answer for this item? Ayan, so A, molecular colloid, B, associated colloid, C, macromolecular colloid, or D, lyophilic colloid. O class, here, ibibigay ko muna yung answer before we discuss the reason behind or our explanation. Okay? So here, class, we formed actually your associated colloid, meaning ang ating soap, it is just your salt of our fatty acids. So they associate to each other in order to form your colloid, particularly with your hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail to reduce the water lipid unfavorable interaction. Okay? So class, again, remember, it's at high concentration. So meaning super saturated na ang aqueous solution natin. So let's check. Okay, so in order to explain our answer here, are you familiar with the term CMC or our critical micelle concentration? So during our undergrad, this is actually an experiment in order to monitor the properties of your lipid molecules. So in particular, kasi class CMC, that's the specific concentration of your surfactant at which it begins to aggregate or to form your micelles. Let's compare the four different colloidal structures. So starting with molecular, ayan. So this one is the structure of your soap when they are below CMC. So they are individually existing. Yung each unit, your triglyceride molecule, are individually existing. So they are dispersed in water. Okay, so for our next, ayan, that's our answer. So associated colloid, this one forms above CMC. So meaning at high concentration where micelles begin to form through clumping or aggregation, diba? So of course, hydrophobic core and hydrophilic head to have your favorable water lipid interaction. Also, how about macromolecular? Class, say macromolecular, actually this is not dependent on your CMC. So typically that's just your large molecules such as your polymers, your proteins, polysaccharides that are dispersed in your solvent. Okay? So again, these are not dependent on CMC. So accordingly, si lyophilic, it's also not dependent on CMC. Alright? So class, again for lyophilic, ayan, lyophilic colloids are solvent attracting colloids. So they form easily and actually they can be reversed. So pwedeng as suspension sila or pwedeng as individual molecules. So class, again, when we say lyophilic, diba? That's your colloidal substance that has a strong affinity sa aqueous solution or for the liquid in which it is dispersed. So hindi siya magka-clump. It's actually going to attract or be attracted sa water. Okay, for number 16, again, our answer is letter B, associated colloid. Alright, so I hope that's clear, class. Again, valid if you got the incorrect answer. This is actually a challenging question. So for those who got the correct answer, good job, class. Alright, number 17. Which of the following is an essential fatty acid? So meaning we cannot synthesize it because we lack the enzyme that can produce these acids. I'll check. Is it A, arachidonic, B, palmitic, C, linolenic, or D, oleic? Class, if you're familiar, our answer is actually an omega-3 fatty acid. Sir, parang alam ko kung ano ang omega-3 fatty acid among the four choices. Class, that's your linolenic acid. Okay? So again, we cannot synthesize this one. So number 17 answer, letter C for number 18. Ayan, very easy question. So I emphasized this during our discussion on our amino acids. So this is a feature of amino acids that makes each different, giving each a unique set of properties. So here are the choices. Is it A, your alpha carboxylic acid group, B, alpha amino group, C, your side chain, or D, your alpha carbon? Class, diba, during our discussion, I flashed first the general structure of your amino acid, and this is the diagram. As you can see, all of your amino acids, they have these three distinct functional groups. First one, si alpha carboxylic acid, so eliminated si A. Second, you have your amino group, eliminated C, and lastly, you have your alpha carbon, and thus eliminated C, letter D. The different nature of your amino acids is given by their unique side chain, diba? So remember, your side chain allows our amino acids to have their unique characteristic, either hydrophobic, hydrophilic, carboxylic, may basic, acidic, and aromatic amino acids. Okay? So again, for number 18, our answer is letter C. Alright, so class 18 is actually a very easy question. So I do hope that majority got the correct answer. Alright, let's proceed with number 19. The amino acid that would yield the titration curve to the right would be, ayan, A, leucine, B, lysine, C, histidine, D, arginine. Class, for these types of question, of course, we know sa titration curve, our main hint here is the buffering regions, diba? So the buffering regions are those regions that have a very low drastic change in pH. So sir, anong regions po yan here? So this one is your first buffering region. Your second one is your second buffering region here above our isoelectric point. Diba? This one is your isoelectric point. And in order to answer this question, we have a system of answering this one. So again, check the buffering regions. Kapag dalawa lang, that's basically your neutral amino acid. Sir, for number 19, dalawa lang yung buffering regions. Is it a neutral amino acid? Yes. Among the choices, which is a neutral amino acid, and that is your leucine. Pag acidic or basic ang amino acid, of course, it will have three regions. So in order to deduce or to define and determine if it's acidic or basic, of course, you need to examine the isoelectric point. Okay? Acidic siya kapag less than 7 ang isoelectric point. So meaning acidic ang molecule, diba? Pag less than 7 ang pH niya. For your basic, that's greater than 7 ang isoelectric point. So again, class, for number 19, our answer is letter A. Okay, so I hope you got the correct answer. So please feel free to familiarize our systematic way of answering these types of questions through the use of your buffering regions and isoelectric point. Ayan, so let's proceed with our item number 20. Which amino acid cannot form an alpha helix? Ay naku sir, I still remember that. Dalawa yan. Either si glycine and si proline, diba? So we discussed that. So in our succeeding slide, I will again discuss these two amino acids and the reason why they cannot form your alpha helix. But for now, let's proceed with your item number 21. Very easy, diba? So if you know the answer here, actually you can use item number 19 in answering this question. Let's read. The protein's net charge becomes 0 when its pH is made equal to its A, IPH, or your isoelectric point. B, pKa. No. C, your POH. No, no, no. Or D, your pKb. Sir, easy question. Letter A po ang answer. That's correct. Again, that's your isoelectric pH. So in our succeeding slides, I will flash again the important formulas that you need to memorize. Class clear. Again, for number 20, letter C, proline. It cannot form an alpha helix similar with your glycine. And number 21, IPH, EI, isoelectric point, or the characteristic pH of your protein where they do not have net electric charge. Ayan. So again, for glycine and proline, si glycine, again, class, remember, due to its achiral nature, very small ang structure, ayan, it gives many possible angles of rotation, and hence, it disrupts the formation of alpha helices. Okay, because your structure is unstable. So for proline, on the other hand, it's actually the opposite. So if lysine is small, ciproline is bulky. Remember, it has a secondary amino group in its structure. So thus, it limits its flexibility, nagiging rigid. Ang alpha helix, thus it disrupts its original structure. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Plus, for your isoelectric pH, remember again, our three formulas. So di ba nagbigay ako ng tip? For acidic, 2 nearby values that are relatively acidic. So meaning less than 7. For basic, again, use your pKa values that are basic and nearby to each other. Okay? Sa neutral naman, sir, ano pong tip? Plus, direct plug in na lang yan sa ating algebraic formula. Okay? Very straightforward ang formula for your calculation ng isoelectric pH. Clear? Ayan. So class, I hope that still at this point, very few pa lang ang errors nyo. Okay? So now let's proceed with our next item, number 22. All of the following are non-covalent bonds used in tertiary and quaternary structure of proteins except blank. O class, I emphasize this, di ba? So you have your cysteine amino acid kasi that gives rise to this specific covalent bond. Class, hindi ka napapatagalin ha. Let's compare the choices. O sir, obvious, si disulfide bridge is ang answer. Yes po, again, si disulfide bridge is actually your covalent bond form because of your cysteine residues. Okay? Si hydrophilic, electrostatic, and hydrogen bonding, of course, they are your additional stabilizing bonds, particularly sa tertiary as we have discussed. But for hydrophilic, of course, non-covalent, so this is not the correct answer. Si electrostatic, ionic po siya. That's your ionic attraction between your side chains. And si hydrogen bonding, of course, with attraction between your hydrogen atom and electronegative atoms. O sir, clearly answer is letter A. Yes po, very good. Answer for 22 is letter A. Okay, let's proceed with number 23, still with our enzymes discussion. Which class of enzymes does the enzyme catalyzing the given reaction belong? As you're familiar yung reaction that's actually in your glycolytic pathway. Yes po, diba? So here, as you can see, if you will analyze the structure of the compounds, si 3PG actually just formed your isomerization reaction. From 3PG, we formed 2PG. So here, class, are the choices. So, diba? A, oxidoreductase, B, isomerase, C, ligase, or D, transferase. Class, again, this is just an isomerization reaction where we transferred your 3-phosphate group to the C2 position here. Okay? So, our answer here is isomerase, not transferase. Class, again, this is a specific transfer reaction kasi in order to prepare our succeeding steps sa glycolytic pathway. So, for number 23, again, it's letter B. Alright, for 24, ayan, in the amino acid sequence, KLATMCF, so that's one letter code of your amino acids. What does the letter T represent based on the one letter amino acid code? Class, here are the choices. I hope na-aral nyo, you have studied our 1 and 3 letter code, okay? Is it A, tyrosine, B, threonine, C, tryptophan, or D, methionine? Class, what is your answer here? Your answer should be letter B. Okay, so class, remember, for our tyrosine, its one letter code is letter Y, diba? So for tryptophan naman, sir, W. Yes po. And for methionine, of course, obviously, that's your letter M. Okay, so class, again, we have here the list of our 1 and 3 letter code. Ayan, so please, again, review your 1 and 3 letter codes because in the board exam, they also use it in your questions. Alright, so for our 25th item, the nucleic acid base is blank. A, absorb UV light maximally at 280 nanometers. B, are all about the same size. C, are relatively hydrophilic. Or D, are roughly planar. Class, again, hindi siya sa 280, that's actually in your 260 wavelength. Okay? So letter A is not the answer. Of course, very obvious, 260 po siya dapat class ang nanometer for this UV light absorption. O sir, letter B, mali din yan eh. They have different sizes. Yes po, di ba? Recall, for your nitrogenous bases, we have your pyrimidines and your purines. Okay? So letter B is not the answer. So ayan, nasplok ko na pala. For number 25, our answer is letter D. Your rings actually are planar. And it gives your characteristic planar structure of your nucleic acids. O sir, hindi ba tama si hydrophilic because of the numerous hydroxyl groups? Class, because of the bulky structure of your nucleic acids, they are sterically hindered for water interaction. Alright? So class, again, remember, ang nucleic acids, their characteristic structure is planar. Generally speaking. Alright? For 25, our answer is letter D. Okay, so let's proceed with our item number 26. Give the name of the nucleotide that has a guanine, 2 phosphate groups, a pentose that is found in DNA. Class, this one is a nomenclature type of question. Di ba we briefly discussed this in our discussion on nucleic acid. So I do hope you got the correct answer. First one daw, ayan, here are the choices first. So obviously dapat guanine ang nitrogenous base natin here. Okay, so again, that's your guanine. And here, it has 2 phosphate groups. Okay, so sure dapat meron siyang prefix na di. Yes, but in the choices, lahat sila class meron. So we cannot use your phosphate moiety in order to determine the correct answer. For the pentose, of course, that's just your ribose. Found in DNA kasi, so that's deoxyribose. So meaning sir, dapat may prefix na deoxy? Yes. So that's why we can eliminate your choices A and B. And here class is our systematic way of answering your item 26. So again, for the base, it should contain guanine. So all of them has that guanine or guanosine nomenclature. Sa sugar, dapat deoxy because that's your in DNA. That's found in DNA. For our name, dapat guanosine. Okay, it will be transformed to guanosine because that's your base plus sugar. Oh, sir, why did we not include phosphate in the nomenclature? So class, again, we separately name kasi si nucleoside and si phosphate group. And yes, it can be done. So that's why dapat guanosine po ang gagamitan natin. So here, class, between C and D, our correct answer is letter B. Okay? So it should be 2-deoxyguanosine 5-diphosphate. Okay, so that's for our item 26, letter D. So let's proceed with our next item. Class, this is actually a board exam question from last year. Di ba, very recent. And check, is it easy, average, or difficult? So I think somehow average question. So which of the following macromolecules would yield only one type of monomer after complete hydrolysis? So here are the choices. A, DNA, B, glycogen, C, lipoprotein, or D, triacyl glycerol. Class, please, I do hope that you remembered our discussion ha. So one of them is actually a homopolymer lang. So meaning, it is only, its monomeric unit is only one. Similar lang ang monomeric units niya, and that is your glycogen, diba? So let's check. For DNA, that's your nucleotides A, T, G, and C. So 4 monomeric units upon hydrolysis. For lipoprotein, it's your lipid and protein components. So basically, 2 different monomers for lipoprotein. Also, how about tags? Class, remember, for your tags, we will liberate 3 free fatty acids and the glycerol backbone. Clearly, for number 27, again, our answer is letter B, glycogen. Okay, so class, let's proceed with our next item. A biochemical reaction will proceed in the direction as written if blank. Oh, sir, is this under bioenergetics? Yes. So either G and H can be used in bioenergetics pathway, diba? But here, when we are asked about the direction of the reaction, so meaning spontaneity po ang ina-ask. Class, always remember from your physical chemistry, diba? We use your delta G or your Gibbs free energy change to determine the spontaneity of your reactions. O sir, si delta H po for heat change yan, class, okay? Or for heat transfer. So obviously, si letter B and your letter C are incorrect. O diba, pag delta G is negative, spontaneous. Pag positive, that's non-spontaneous. That's why our answer here is letter D, wherein delta G or your Gibbs free energy change is less than 0. Okay, for number 28, our answer is letter D. Okay, ba class, again, for delta G or Gibbs free energy change, spontaneity. For delta H, heat change. Okay, so let's proceed with our next item. Number 29, let's consider the following metabolic reactions. So we have your succinyl-CoA condensed with your acetoacetate to form your acetoacetyl-CoA plus your succinate intermediate. Okay, ang delta G daw natin or ang standard delta G or Gibbs free energy change is around negative 1.25. Also relatively non-spontaneous po yan. Yes po. In this standard conditions, remember class, this is your standard delta G, your reaction is actually spontaneous, meaning it's favorable po. So here are our choices. Letter A, favorable under standard conditions. B, not favorable under standard conditions. O C class, eliminated na agad yan from your delta G. Non-spontaneous ba yun? No, again, it's spontaneous as written regardless of reactant concentrations. And letter D, spontaneous as written only when succinate and acetoacetyl-CoA are high. So actually class, if you know our Le Chatelier's principle or Le Chatelier's principle, when your products are reactant, the reversible reaction is more favored. So actually letter D is also incorrect. Non-spontaneous po ang reaction na to if the concentration, of acetoacetyl-CoA and succinate is high. Again, when we say favorable, your reaction has a negative Gibbs free energy change or standard Gibbs free energy change and hence spontaneous. All right, class, I hope you got the correct answer. Class, this item is actually easy, but because of the lengthy choices, some of you might get confused or tricked, particularly sa letter D. Some of you might answer letter D because siya yung pinakamahaba sa choices. Class, for this types of questions, just use your standard Gibbs free energy change. Kapag negative, meaning spontaneous, hence favorable. So synonymous lang po talaga siya. Okay, so class, again, for our next item, ayan. Oh sir, but my reduction potential here. No class, this is just a straightforward reaction that's still under your bioenergetics discussion. Let's read. Consider the two half reactions below. Which one has a greater tendency to proceed as a reduction half reaction? So reaction 1, this is just the electron transfer from your NAD plus to NADH. Okay, so this one is our ETC complex 1, diba? Remember, so reaction 2, that's in your complex 4. The final electron transfer to your oxygen to yield water. Okay, and here are the reduction potentials. For your reaction 1, negative 0.32. For your oxygen electron transfer, 0.82. Class, here are the choices. A reaction 1, B same tendency, C reaction 2, D both reactions have no tendency to proceed. Class, clearly basing it to your reduction potentials, it's just either reaction 1 or reaction 2. So letter B is actually an incorrect choice and your letter D. So class, remember from your Anachem, the standard reduction potential, a more positive reduction potential value means a greater tendency to proceed as a reduction half reaction. Oh, so sir, letter C ang answer. Yes po, diba? Please review again your Anachem. More positive reduction potential, meaning more possible or tendency to proceed for their reduction reactions. So class, again for number 30, it's letter C. Okay, so now let's proceed with our item number 31. Ayan. Which of the following can freely pass through the inner mitochondrial membrane? O class, diba, from our discussions, we know that only your nonpolar and small molecules can pass through freely in our membranes. So particularly sa mitochondria, of course, same lang yan na may bilayer tayo. O sir, what's the reason? Because again, your layer or bilayer is relatively hydrophobic ang core ng structure niya. Let's check the choices. Is it A, carbon dioxide, B, proton, C, acetate, or D, ATP? Class, here is our summary. Those that can freely pass are the small and nonpolar molecules because they have a favorable interaction with your lipid bilayer. So for instance, we have your carbon dioxide. Also, yan yung answer for 31. Yes po. Okay? So for those that cannot freely pass and need your transport protein and respective shuttles, those are your charged or large polar molecules such as your proton, your acetate, and ATP. Diba? We need to have their respective shuttles in order to transport them to your mitochondrial membrane. For 31, our answer is letter A. Ayan. So for item number 32. Class, under biological membranes, what are the following components of your membranes? We discussed this. Sir, may nucleic acids po ba sa membrane? Class, none. Your nucleic acids are only found inside the nucleus, particularly sa DNA and your mitochondria. Si RNA, it can only be found inside or in your cytosol, not in your membranes. So class, for 32, our answer should be letter C. Again, si letter A, B, and D, dapat wala tayong nucleic acid components in our membranes. Okay? So I hope that's clear. Again, for number 32, our answer is letter C. Diba recall, we actually discussed this in detail during our discussion on your biological membrane. So here are the four main components. You have your phospholipids, you have your carbohydrates such as your glycoproteins. You also have your glycolipids, diba, for cell signaling. You have your proteins, and you have your cholesterols or generally sterols for the fluidity and stability of the lipid bilayer. Okay, so class, I hope that's clear. So now, we are going to discuss our next item. Diba ang dali ng item? 32. Let's proceed with this. Item number 33. Class, challenging ba si item 33 or it's just easy peasy? Let's check. All cellular components are coming from supramacromolecules except. Class, meaning these molecules are very large or integrated with other biomolecules. Kasi may term na supramacromolecules. Here are the choices. A, cell membrane. B, chromatin fiber. C, globular proteins. Or D, cell wall. Sir, is globular protein supramacromolecular? Class, this is the structure of your globular protein. And remember, ang primary structure, amino acid sequence lang po. So it does not integrate with any other biomolecule. So class, for number 33, actually, our answer is letter C. Again, that's just plain polymer or polypeptide chain, diba? So particularly, globular proteins are just individual macromolecules rather than supramacromolecules with specific and compact structures from or coming from your amino acids. And clearly, they do not form from larger supramolecular assemblies. Let's see. Ayan, for 33, answer again is letter C. Sir, question, how about glycoprotein? Class, that's a type of your supramacromolecules. Because again, your protein component is integrated with your carbohydrate component. Let's check the other three choices. Ayan. Your supramacromolecules are large complexes formed by the assembly of multiple biomolecules or macromolecules into functional groups. So first one, ayan, we have your cell membrane. This is your cell membrane from our discussion. That's just lipids plus proteins, diba? Meron pa nga tayong sterols in particular for your lipid component. Sir, how about chromatin fiber? Class, from our discussion on our DNA organization, si chromatin fiber, ang basic unit niya, nucleosome. Si nucleosome, ang components niya, your DNA wrapped around your histone proteins. And si cell wall, you have your cellulose, your pectin, and other carbohydrates integrated with other biomolecules. Diba? So again, for our item number 33, answer is letter C, globular proteins. Kapag di alam ang answer, sir, may effect ang power of C. That's right. But class, again, please revisit our discussion for the answer in number 33. Okay, so now let's proceed with our item number 34. So actually, this is the start of your metabolic pathways class. Okay, so starting with item 34, this is the breakdown of glucose into two molecules of pyruvate occurs in the A. Cytosol, B. Nucleus, C. Ribosomes, or D. Mitochondria. O class, diba? I emphasized this in our discussion on the overview of cellular respiration. Hindi ba si glycolysis or this pathway of breaking down your glucose into 2-pyruvate is unique because it's located in your cytosol. Diba? The only process in your cellular respiration that occurs in your cytosol. If you got the correct answer, very good class. If hindi naman, okay lang. So revisit our discussion on your glycolytic pathway. Alright, so class, very easy dapat sa inyo ang item number 34. Straightforward question yan class. Okay? So for item 35, ayan. So I think this is particularly challenging. So you need a concept of your organic chemistry here. So which type of reaction that is not involved in glycolysis? Let's see. A. Nucleophilic substitution, B. Electrophilic addition, C. Reduction, or D. Aldol cleavage. Sir, what's the answer? Clueless kami. Class, this is actually a challenging question. Let's see. For nucleophilic substitution, we have your hexokinase reaction. So actually, si phosphoryl group transfer is a type of nucleophilic substitution. Okay? So from your organic chemistry, I do hope that you are familiar with your nucleophilic types of substitution. Of course, your nucleophile will attack your electrophile in order to form your new functional group in its structure. Class, the letter B, electrophilic addition. So addition of your electrophile is not a typical reaction in your glycolytic pathway. Okay? So sir, answer po ba dyan is letter B? Yes, but let's discuss your letter C. Ayan, reduction. Class, from our discussion, di ba? We have numerous redox reaction. They are always coupled to each other. For instance, the reduction of NAD plus to form NADH via your GTP dehydrogenase reaction. Okay, and lastly, aldol cleavage. That's the fifth reaction. Okay, so again, fifth reaction and our sixth reaction, the aldolase cleaves fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Diba? Very characteristic reaction ni glycolytic pathway ang aldol cleavage. And thus, our answer here again, class, remember, electrophilic addition. Alright, so class, let's proceed with our item number 36. Class, if you are saturated with our discussion, feel free to pause pala the video. Okay, so class, let's proceed with our item number 36. So this is under your fates of pyruvate. Bacteria poisoned by the presence of oxygen are called, class, here are the choices. Sir, wala tayong discuss na aerobes. Yes, class, again, we only discuss your facultative anaerobes and your obligate anaerobes. Diba? So letter A and letter B are actually incorrect choices. So now we are left with letter C and letter D. Class, your item number 36, our answer is actually your obligate anaerobes. Okay, remember our discussion on your two types of anaerobe. So obligate, from the name itself, it is obligado na in your anaerobic condition. Okay, so they cannot survive in the presence of oxygen and it directs your pyruvate to LAF or your lactic acid fermentation. On the other hand, for facultative anaerobe, ayan, they are very flexible or napaka-versatile nilang anaerobes because they prefer to live in the presence of oxygen but carry lang din kahit wala. Diba? So again, for 36, our answer is letter D, obligate anaerobes. Alright, so class, this is actually an easy question and this already appeared in the board exam, particularly 2022. Okay, now let's proceed with our item 37. Class, I hope you remember this type of question. Diba? This is actually a board exam question last year po. Okay, so lagyan nyo na ng asterisk ang status nyo ng EEO. What sugar derivative enters glycolysis as fructose 6-phosphate? Class, here are the choices. So all of them, we discussed it in our summary slides sa glycolytic pathway. Diba? A. Glucose, B. Mannose, C. Galactose, and D. Fructose. C. Glucose, of course, automatic. It's an incorrect choice because that's our main substrate. So here, class, our answer is letter B. Remember, C. Galactose, it enters your glycolytic pathway as glucose 6P. On the other hand, si fructose, ayan, either GTP or DHAP. So for 37, our answer is letter B, mannose. So far, kamusta ang score? Passing pa naman? Ayan. So class, again, at this point, you can see the trend in our, in the system or organization of our evaluation exam. So it's better kasi na naka-group sila together for your item analysis. So of course, in order to spot your weakest points, it's important that we group muna your topics and the questions here in our evaluation exam. Okay, so let's proceed with our next item. 38, heat can be generated in the brown adipose tissue of hibernating mammals due to, ayan, ay sir, letter D, ang haba ng answer Class, no, marami lang talaga siyang sinasabi, pero nonsense yan, okay? So let's read each question. A. Increased ATP production by ATP synthase. Class, this one is actually vague. So your ATP can generate energy, okay? Not heat, diba? So this is actually an incorrect answer. Letter C. I sir, feel ko letter B ang answer. Class, let's discuss letter C first. So a greater pH gradient across the inner mitochondrial membrane by complex 4. Again, class, we are talking about heat generation. So the pH gradient is actually under your oxidative phosphorylation, diba? Generation pa rin siya ng ATP. Okay, so letter D again, as I have said earlier, marami lang siyang EBAS, but this is not actually the correct answer. Insufficient NADH production during the citric acid cycle due to less active pyruvate translocase. Actually, it's very or obvious na incorrect siya. So yung heat kasi it's powered by your ATP generation or your proton gradient generation rather, diba? So remember, we have your biological uncoupler thermogenin that is stored in your adipose tissue. So we call the process non-shivering thermogenesis. Okay, and this is mediated by our protein thermogenin or your UCP1 protein, the uncoupling protein 1. And this is our discussion or under our discussion on our inhibitors ng electron transport chain and uncouplers. So sir, letter B po ba ang answer? Yes. Okay, so heat is generated in brown fat through uncoupling of oxidative phosphorylation by thermogenin, which allows protons to flow without making ATP. Okay, so class, again for number 38, letter B. Class, please don't be lazy in answering or reading our choices. Okay, take your time. 2.5 hours naman ang allotted time in your actual board exam. Actually, that's more than enough. Alright, so again, please be careful and maximize your time answering each questions. Alright, so ready now with our next question, item 39. Which of the following statements is false? Oh, here are the choices. Napagod ba kayong mag-read during your EE? Ang haba ng answer, di ba? Oh, let's check. Letter A, all of the protein complexes of the mitochondrial respiratory chain are bound in the inner mitochondrial membrane. So class, this is actually a true statement, di ba? Complex 1 to 4, they are all bounded to your mitochondrial membrane. O sir, si mobile electron carrier, hindi ba sila complexes? No class, they are just small molecules acting as electron carriers. So A is a true statement, meaning this is an incorrect answer. O letter B, cytochrome C and coenzyme Q are both soluble electron carriers that are loosely attached to the outside of the inner mitochondrial membrane. Class, it's true that they are loosely attached. But is it true na both of them are soluble? Remember, si cytochrome C, water soluble, okay? However, si coenzyme Q, lipid soluble. So meaning they are different in terms of their solubility. O sir, incorrect po ba si letter B? Yes, false statement po siya. That's why it's our correct answer here. Okay, so again class, false statement si letter B. But before we proceed with our next item, let's read your letter C and letter D and let's analyze them. Letter C, oxygen is reduced to water at complex 4 of the mitochondrial respiratory chain. Or class, obviously, this is a correct statement. Remember, in your complex 4 is where the final electron transfer occurs, and that is the site of your oxygen storage. All right, letter D, the citric acid cycle is linked directly to the mitochondrial respiratory chain at the site of complex 2. Yes, that is also true, diba? We have seen your succinate dehydrogenase in your TCA cycle as well. Okay, so class, again, remember your two different mobile electron carriers. They are different in terms of their solubility. Coenzyme Q, lipid soluble. Si cytochrome C, because of its structure, water soluble. All right, so I hope you got the correct answer. Again, class, patience lang in answering, okay? Wag ma-excite to proceed to the next item. Alright, so going back, here is our 40th item. We're now in our half. Midway na tayo ng ating evaluation exam discussion. Which has the highest reduction potential? So A, NADH, B, complex 1, C, complex 2, and D, oxygen. O class, I emphasize this, diba? This is the electron flow in our electron transport chain. Coming from your NAD or your FADH2, it will be transferred to your complex 1 or complex 2, and then a series of electron transfer will occur here, diba? So of course, class, diba, as I have said, ang affinity ng electron is also increasing as they transfer the electron. That's why spontaneous po ang ating electron transfer. Sir, meaning, si oxygen po ang merong high tendency to receive electron? Yes, that's why it is also synonymous to your highest reduction potential. Okay? So class, again, si oxygen has the highest reduction potential, and it also has the greatest affinity for your electron. So making it the final electron acceptor in our ETC. O class, nagka-amnesia na, hindi na ba natandaan yung discussion? Again, si oxygen ang ating final electron acceptor, and thus it has the highest reduction potential and greatest affinity among all other electron carriers. Okay, for number 40, our answer is letter D. Ayan class ang ating electron transport chain. O diba? Si oxygen is actually in your complex 4. And this is your electron transfer or your final electron transfer. Okay, so class, at this point, I will just end the video muna. So we will continue our next half of your EE items in our separate video. Okay, so you can now pause or you can now take your breaks first, sanity break, diba? Or CR break. So class, see you on our continuation in the next video. Bye!